Welcome to episode number 84 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on September the 13th, 2020. My name is Eric, I'm the host of the show, based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and computer geek. As a first responder, I've witnessed the over-reliance on emergency services during major events, and I started a small preparedness company to help people get prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
My name is Ian, and I live on Vancouver Island. I'm an outdoor enthusiast, sport shooter, and my farm's designated handyman.
I'm Alan. I'm a safety trainer, first responder, security expert, and overall safety nerd. And if you want to help keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, do us a favor, buy a Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt at www.rapidsurvival.com. All proceeds help keep the lights on, the backup generator fueled, and they are snappy t-shirts.
Sure they are. If you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, good or bad, or if there's just a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some thermogenic content for you in this episode. The dad jokes continue. We're going to start off with some preparedness-related news articles. Then we'll let you know what we've done for our preparedness since the last episode. Then we're going to get into the main topic of off-grid heating. Let's move into the news.
General commentary on the state of the world. 2 Los Angeles County Sheriff deputies were shot while sitting in their car. Surveillance video shows one person walking up to the passenger side, shooting them both, and then running off. If that weren't bad enough, protesters outside the hospital where those two deputies were taken were chanting that they hope the deputies die.
And they're blocking the entrance to emergency too, right?
Yeah, they're blocking the entrance so that other people couldn't get to the hospital. Do better.
Well, and let's not sugarcoat it. They told everybody exactly who they were. They were BLM protesters. And,
yep.
You know, I think if they had any credibility up to this point, I think that's kind of gone now.
Yeah.
I can understand to a point when you are in the heat of the moment and you let the tiger out of the cage. I can understand how that happens. These 2 people were sitting in their car doing literally nothing. I mean, they're patrol cops, so
they're doing their job.
They do on a regular day anyways, doing literally nothing. Both of them got shot by a guy, just walked up and then ran away. Like that wasn't, you know, excessive force. That wasn't incidental to other actions. That was premeditated. There's just no way to make that. There's no way to justify that as being as furthering anybody's cause.
Yeah.
Well, and what's even worse is, judging by the video footage, they're saying that based on the body size and makeup of the person that did it, it looks like it could be a child. In which case, what are you programming your kids to do nowadays? You know what I mean? Based on what you see in the media.
I thought the same thing, and honestly, to me, it looked like I was. If I had to guess, I would say that was a gang indoctrination.
Yeah,
he was buying into a gang because he was, he's young. He ran, he wasn't much taller than the cruiser, shaped like a kid. Yeah, I tend to agree.
It's unfortunate. And then to go and block the entrance to the emergency room for not only to have those 2 first responders not be able to be admitted, but the rest of the general public as well. It's just
that's the big one. Like the rest of the general public, this is Los Angeles, Canada. They're not the only people that are being hurt right now that are not sick.
No.
Like everybody else needs access to that building.
Yep.
And that's there's no way to make that. There's no way to make that better at all.
No.
Yeah. Well, for some good news, for the first time since the 1990s, we had a march on Ottawa by gun owners. And so the CCFR Integrity March happened yesterday, September 12th. Whoops.
Yep.
And it was a huge success. Like, depends on who you ask. The CBC said 500 people. And of course, the people that were there said about 5,000. And they had some aerial footage to back it up with drone shots. So, awesome. Like, I'm so proud of those guys for basically what amounts to 4 people in an office. They organized this thing on basically short notice. Had a bunch of people show up from across the country. I wish I could have been there, but I wasn't. And so just a couple key points. Unlike some other protesters, no property damage occurred. Nobody was hurt on either side of any sort of protest. Nobody was arrested and nobody was shot. And just goes to show you, law-abiding gun owners obey the law.
Weird.
It's so weird.
Almost as if
We're
the
not the
people who
problem?
go through the licensing process are not the problem.
It's almost like that, right?
Almost.
And So like that was so awesome. I was so happy to see the way it worked out, and the turnout was great. I mean, it could always be better, but the turnout was still great. Like considering like I think the Doctors for Coalition for Gun Control or Doctors Against Gun Control, whatever it was, down in Toronto had like 8 people show up for the protest. So, and what a difference!
Yeah, that was good. Good to see the turnout, and it's for all the right reasons as well. So
I know for sure
in there, timing didn't work. So.
Yeah, I know for sure that one of our panelists, who's a regular contributor, was definitely there.
Yes, I imagine he's nursing a hangover today. If I had to guess,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw him on some of the video.
I absolutely did. I saw some of his pictures shared by a few other people who were also there or not there, and it looked like a fantastic turnout. And great job, Rod and Tracy and Colin and Gavin and everybody that was involved in that.
Yeah, for sure.
That was good to see, and I was also glad to see that it went off without a hitch, and I think it accomplished exactly what they were looking to accomplish. And it was good to see.
Right on.
So for myself, I've got a news article here because 2020 just can't get any weirder. California wildfire whips up a fire tornado.
Does anybody remember back in January when Australia was on fire, and that's how this whole thing started?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, kind of if you want to call it good news, the fire tornado is not exceptionally rare. This is actually a thing that happens on a pretty regular basis, and when you get that much soot and smoke over over an area, it actually affects the weather patterns. And so this is actually not that big a deal, which is the good news. The bad news is that like most of the West Coast is on fire.
When you see that, it is just amazing to watch. So like the footage from that video. Right now, actually, even here in Vancouver, where I am right now, and also on the island, the smoke is so thick, it's like down to less than a mile visibility, and you can smell it. I mean, it's crazy. But if we want to don our tinfoil hat for one tiny second, if you look at a map of all the forest fires going on right now, it's amazing how global warming is conscious of national borders, and they all pretty much stop at the U.S. border with Canada, which I found interesting. It's almost like
that is interesting. I'm gonna go get my tinfoil. I'll be back.
Yeah, it's almost like
it couldn't have anything to do with different management systems or anything, right? Like different forest management
different forest management systems. Like California is notorious for like not allowing underbrush to be cleared and leaving a bunch of fuel on the ground for years on end. That was also a major problem. But there's also been a bunch of people arrested that may or may not belong to a certain protest group that have been intentionally lighting fires. So
of course that also happened, and then they also had the cluster fire scene where literally a lightning storm. You can watch video of it lighting about 1,000 acres of fires because there was a lightning storm. So
my personal favorite one was the gender reveal party.
That was in Arizona, I believe. Yeah, where they lit off a blue firework or a pink firework and started at 5,000. Now the good news is that those people are going to get a bill for that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're never going to be able to pay it because it's upwards of $20 million by the time that fire is out. But like, they're going to get a bill for that.
Yeah.
God,
I did laugh at it.
Do better.
Well, and everybody's trying to politicize it to their own ends, and of course, like you get the California governor getting in there saying this is all about global warming. I'm like, actually, it was kind of your forest management practices, but let's not go there.
No.
Yeah.
But it was still smoldering. He's like, yeah, global warming. The science is settled. That's it. And I was like, no. Just bad management.
I think the thing that I love most about the term "the science is settled" is that that's not how science works.
You're supposed
science
to question
is never settled. That's what makes it
question
scientific. It has to be like. Anyways, I'll get off on that. That's a tangent for another podcast.
My question about all this is: can we just return 2020 to Costco? They got a pretty good return policy, and just start with 2019 again.
Yeah, I'm really good with downgrading. I'll gladly go back to last year's model.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, let's move into what we've done lately for preps. So for myself, I spent a couple of days out in the woods again, back out at the fish camp. Learned that I need a new tent. Waterproofing apparently no longer exists on this tent. However, it does not owe me anything.
You should go back and listen to our episode from beginning of August on shelters.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I should. Yeah, I knew this was coming with the tent. It owes me nothing. It's like 13 years old. So,
although you can go to Canadian Tire and get that 1 gallon bucket of waterproofing thing. You just paint it on your tent, and it's good for another season at least.
Tried that for the last couple seasons. It finally didn't take this time. So it owes me absolutely nothing. So, oh well, time to go gear shopping. Boo-hoo.
Darn.
Terrible. Ugh. As well, started to increase my water intake. So I got my nice little techie gadget here now, a water bottle that keeps track of all my water intake and sets a goal for me for the day. So something I'm always terrible at doing. So yes, nerd. I'll put my pocket protector on and all that good stuff. But starting to do that, and I'm coinciding that with getting my physical fitness and workout routine back into play because, COVID, and I just let it kind of fall off the rails. So getting back into that.
No, I think you're following it's your partisan challenge. You're supposed to do 2 liters of water a day, right?
I'm there.
Yeah.
Yep. It's going to be a fun night.
Actually, also, the fitness is key too. Like, it's actually kind of funny because normally I do my morning walk. I get about 4 or 5K in at least or something. And interestingly, today the dogs didn't want to do it because of the smoke in the air. They actually were getting more affected by the smoke than I was. And so one of my dogs actually turned around and said, bugger you, and went back to the house on her own. And I only took 2 of them with me today.
I don't know if I'm more concerned about the smoke or the fact your dog talks.
Well, in dog speak, I kind of got that you have to learn how to. You have to be like a dog whisperer and
fair enough.
Read the signs.
Yeah.
So, for myself, let's see here. So obviously it's coming up on fall time, so we're starting to worry about wintertime stuff. The wife actually volunteered to go down to the crawl space and take a look around for like air leaks and stuff like that. I tipped my hat to her for that one, and she discovered a couple of air leaks we need to patch up and fill. So we've been working on kind of crawl space stuff more than anything else. So a lot of house maintenance going on right now. Obviously, rotation of the stock for various stuff, cooking oils and everything else. The kids' car, we had a third car join the fleet there because my one child is of age to drive. So I want to make sure I got a first aid kit set up for that one. So I've been slowly outfitting the car, and I kind of actually gathered up all my first aid supplies, and I'm trying to put together a little kit for the car. I got notice that the Vortex scope I sent in is actually getting replaced for free. So once again,
Nice.
Vortex to the rescue. So that was the one I took to the Mapleseed a couple weeks ago, and it kind of shit the bed on me in the middle of the beginning of the shoot anyway. And so our bad. So you get a brand new one. Like,
that's awesome.
I love those lifetime warranties. They're great. So let's see here. I actually got a great tip from one of our listeners, Cam, who got me in touch with a guy who had some local, really tasty looking hay for the alpacas. And I got 30 bales of it for super cheap. So I got that stuffed away in the shed for the winter because they've kind of eaten through the property now, and they're just maintaining the clear space. And wintertime gets a little lean, so I want to make sure I have something for them in case of the second wave. So I have 30 bales of that for them, so that's good. Also with listener Cam as well, he's actually the guy raising our hogs, so we coordinated the slaughter day with him. And he's also raising one of our sheep that we're getting, or one of our lambs. So I've arranged for 2 lambs now. And we also bought a schwack of garlic off of them. So
nice.
And we can use some of that for seed for ourselves next year, hopefully. But it's delicious garlic. He does a really good job. Did a couple CGN deals, and I think that was pretty much it. Obviously, I've been working and doing everything else, regular stuff. But that's pretty much it.
Only half a page today.
Short
Only
list
half
this
page.
week. Yeah.
That's right.
I've been doing lots of PT myself, completely independent of Eric's idea, but there we are. Drinking significantly more than 2 liters of water a day. I've got some renovations happening in the house. We had, I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago, we had the roof blow off in a storm. So I've got my new roof on, and now my the back room where my office / podcast studio is now down to the studs, and doing a few new things there. Plans are moving forward for my dream shop that's going to end up with my office and Radio Shack and all kinds of other things. I'm doing a technical rescue class coming up this weekend, which is going to be a good time. Lots of rope and rigging, and fixed a water issue. So I had some drainage problems. My property is all clay, so of course there's nowhere for the water to go. Result was me digging a cubic yard of clay out, filling it with drainage stone, and then packing it all back in, and now use that as an opportunity to fix some of the grading around the house. So hopefully that will now drain water away from the house and not into my basement.
So a better spot for it to be.
I hope so. I think so. And then I'm just hoping that it doesn't drain into my neighbor's yard now, because he's a really nice guy.
Hey, Alan, just a quick first aid question for you.
Yeah.
Are you still teaching at all?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
as much as possible. Yeah.
With the COVID stuff, with the social distancing, all this stuff, are people still able to recertify with CPR at all?
Yes. I don't know how other companies are doing it, but the company that I teach with, which is a Red Cross authorized training partner, we're limiting our people to, or we're limiting our class sizes to 8 people. We're strongly pushing the blended learning, so you'll do all the theory portion online, and then you'll just come into the class for 4 or 6 hours and do the hands-on. It's a modified program so that there's a little bit less interaction. The classes are a lot smaller, but it's still happening. You still get your CPR dummy. You still get to listen to me go on about staying alive and play the Office video, like that segment from that one scene of The Office, and all of those things. So it is still happening. At least in this part of the country. I don't know about other training partners, how they're doing things, but it is a thing still. Yes.
Okay, just curious. I just got a text there. Somebody was asking me. I was like, "Oh, that's a good point. Never thought about the renewal side of things." So
yeah. So the WSIB in Ontario, who's the regulatory body for first aid, extended everybody's certificates by 6 months. So if you were going to be expiring from April through to September, your expiry date was automatically added 6 months to it, so that you're not your training is not invalid, and you can still recertify rather than having to go through the whole course again. Now, Red Cross is kind of doing the same thing where they've extended the dates. I don't know about other providers, and I don't know about other provinces. I can't speak to that.
Cool.
All right, good to know. Shall we move into the main topic?
Yeah. So I guess off-grid heating. So number one thing I want to talk about, which probably take up the bulk of the show, is the wood stove. Yep. This is not to be confused with the fireplace, but everybody, if they're getting serious about off-grid heating, should really have a wood stove. Lots of reasons for that, of course. The fireplace itself, that used to have the stone hearth and everything else, incredibly inefficient as far as the heat it actually provides for the house. But also the fact is, when you're not using it, it has a bunch of cold air drafting down. Even with that little damper in there, it still leaked past that. And I remember we had one in Alberta on my acreage, and it was very cold in winter. You could feel the cold air coming down, right? But
yeah, same with our two. We've got 2 fireplaces in the house, and there's a ever so slight draft, but it's there.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if you try and start the fire, then you have to make sure you do the burnt, the rolled up newspaper and kind of get the airflow going and everything else. And it just seems to be a pain in the butt compared to the wood stove, right? So
wood stove way easier.
Well, the fireplace is way cooler. I'd say the wood stove is more efficient and a better use of your time and energy, right?
Absolutely.
So if you're gonna do off-grid heating, I would highly recommend a wood stove if you're gonna be serious about it. Obviously, the easiest to use, the most renewable woods fuel source. As far as probably on your property, if not easy to order. You can order a truckload and it'll show up on your driveway. They'll dump it off and you can put it wherever you want, right?
Yep.
As long as you have it under shelter, I mean, wood will keep for years if you keep it dry and don't let it rot on you. So yeah, you keep it under a roof or under a tarp. I mean, you're gonna have a fuel supply sitting there for years to go, right?
You absolutely are.
Well, the wood stove
if you're gonna rely on it, make sure you have a whole lot more than you think you need.
Oh. Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny because I remember my buddy at a bush camp said, it wasn't unusual to go through a quart a day trying to keep water boiling and people warm and everything else between all the 2 or 3 tents. It didn't take much, or it didn't take long to go through a quart of wood, right? But as
looks
for
like
myself, yeah, I mean, I'm on the West Coast, which is the warm hippie land, and we still go through about 3 quarts a year, easy, and that's just running it for heat slash. Well, I won't even say ambiance, just say for primary heat, but we also have backup if we need to. But yeah, 3 quarts easy, and that's the minimum, right? I would say. I remember. Go ahead.
When you're choosing your wood stove, I was just going to say, make sure that you pick one with a flat top so that you can cook on it if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. So the flat top is great. Not only because you put the cooking materials on there as a backup to your stove. Obviously, you can put the thermogenic heating and fan devices that actually work on heat versus electricity. There's just multiple uses for having a flat top on there. Even putting a drying rack on top of it too, right? Yep. That's certainly one thing to think about. Obviously, the wood stove will provide you with some light if you got the glass front. Obviously, provides you with heat. And actually, one of the local guys here, the Island Mentor, actually mentioned to me, he says, "Okay, so stop going into the wood stove shop and saying what size do I need for my house," because they'll say, "Well, how many square feet do you have?" And based on our experiences with the one you should get, it's always never enough. So get the largest one you can pretty much buy or afford, because you can always like add wood, but you can't like to a larger one. But if you have a super small one, you can't add more wood to let it sit overnight. So basically, when these wood stoves are getting set up and working in your house, the whole idea is that you run it at like max for about 45 minutes or to an hour to get everything heated up and make sure you don't get the creosote build up. And then you're supposed to put it right down to pretty much idle or just above idle, and that that's where it's going to be most efficient. However, that limits your BTU output. So I mean, the nice thing when you're sitting there for putting wood in for overnight, if you can put a bunch of wood in there, it's going to last till the next morning if you got it on idle, versus if you sit there and put only 2 or 3 logs in because that's all you can get in. By the time the overnight happens, it's dead cold, right? And that's not good.
No.
And I mean, location, just like everything else, the lower down your wood stove is, the better off. I remember the hunt camp that I frequent, it doesn't have a basement, of course, but we've got a wood stove there. And if you are lucky enough to draw the long straw and get the loft, it is toasty warm. Whereas if you are on the main floor and away from the stove, it is chilly no matter how hard it works. So it's heat rises. So if you can, I was in a house where the wood stove was actually in the basement, and they had quite literally just holes cut in the floor with registers to allow the heat to move, and then a couple of fans. But the wood stove was in the basement, and it was comfortable on the main floor and the second floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just loaded the wood right into the basement through a window. Like there was a window in the front that they could just move out like a big basement window, like a tall basement window, and they just put a chute there, and then the wood truck backed up into the driveway, dumped the load, and then they literally just fired the wood down the chute, stacked up beside the stove, and it was indoors, and it was right next to the stove. They didn't have to go outside to get it. It was a really, really neat setup.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, if you let your wood get wet, that's not going to be good. But if you're just letting it dry naturally, you want to give it at least a year or two, preferably, to get it super nice and dry. But interesting that you mentioned about the upper floors too. I mean, during the summer it sucks, but during the winter it's quite nice. Mm-hmm. But if you're in line of sight of the fireplace, generally too, it works well. But if you're actually shaded just from the actual line of sight of the fireplace, you'll actually feel much colder, even if you're only a foot away from the part that's in the fireplace line of sight.
We've got a good question here in the live chat from Josh, just in regards to how do you put a wood stove on idle?
Oh, right at the very bottom, there's a little lever. So basically, it controls the airflow more than anything else. And so basically, when you're starting the fireplace, you put it all the way over to max. And if you have a certain type, you might have to warm up the flue ahead of time, but generally you don't. And you leave it on max, which allows the maximum airflow into the wood stove. And then after everything's nicely heated up, and you actually have a thermometer on your stovepipe or on top of the fireplace sometimes, depending on what type of thermometer it is. And then once it gets up to temperature, and it's going to make sure it doesn't have any residue left behind at that temperature, you put it right down to just above idle, and it restricts the airflow, which means it doesn't go through the fuel as fast, but still provides a nice coal bed. And that provides most of your heat, because you don't actually get a whole lot of heat from flames versus a bed of coals that are sitting there just burning slowly.
Good to know.
That makes sense. Okay, so another thing to keep in mind is what you're burning. So hardwoods versus aspen and pine, lighter woods like that, balsa, I suppose. You're going to get obviously more BTU per cord with the hardwoods versus the lighter woods like pine and aspen. It all depends on what's available to you. Some areas like Southern Ontario or the West Coast, we have hardwoods available. However, other ones are just boreal forests like Alberta. You're stuck with pine, and if you're lucky, like poplar, aspen, that type of thing. So obviously, the more BTU per cord, the better. Cedar does burn even when it's green or wet, because it's got enough oil in the wood to make it burn. However, it burns out really fast. It's almost like balsa wood itself. So, and it leaves a higher residue behind, which is also a bad thing. You don't want that creosote left behind.
I was going to mention the challenge with all the pines is the pitch, no matter what.
Yeah. So yeah,
it's like Yep.
Yeah, it's like pine sol, right? There's always an oily pitch left behind, and of course that stuff is hard to remove from the the pipe just by burning. So of course it leaves you in the springtime with a big mess to clean up, which is a problem too. But also depends on the temperature that you're burning at. Anyway, so what else can I talk about? So heat-powered fans, I think we touched on them briefly, but a lot of stuff works on basically piezoelectric heat. And so basically as the heat comes up, it measures the heat differential between two types of metals and creates electrical current. And no electricity required to run a lot of these fans. So you can put these little, the brand name is Caframo, and there's a couple other ones. Basically, you put them on top of your wood stove, and they'll start some fans blowing, which actually blows around your room. And yeah, no electricity, so it is certainly off grid. It'll create a bit of airflow for you, and maximize the use of your wood.
Convenient. You don't need any power for it.
Yeah, it's actually self-generating. It's kind of nice. I think we mentioned this before the hypothermia episode, but remember back in the day I mentioned those Princess Auto wood stoves that $99 or something like that. I can't find one on the internet to put the link in here right now, but they've got
last
them on
time I
sale.
looked, it was $78.99 was the last time I saw one.
Oh, it's crazy.
They're never in stock at the local Princess Auto to me.
Yeah, I remember the one at Barrie only had like one at a time, and it was like usually scooped up pretty fast. Yeah, so I mean they're good. I mean, yeah, it's light and portable has its place. I think somebody mentioned here.
Yep.
But,
so you wouldn't want to rely on it for heating your house overall, but in terms of having a backup heat source, it doesn't weigh a lot. You can take it with you. You can put it wherever you want, and it will give you heat where you need it. But it's an $80 metal box as opposed to a multiple $100 to multiple $1,000 metal box. So it's not as heavy. You're not going to get the same use out of it as you do of a permanent built stove, something that's designed to last for generations. But it's a good backup.
Well, actually, I should mention that. Yeah, so the wood stove that we have, it's a Pacific Energy. It's made locally here on the island, or over there on the island, anyway. And it's only good for about 15 years or so before you have to start thinking about replacing it. Like every year, when I clean it out, I have to replace some of the stones that are around the perimeter and everything else that they're kind of like man-made bricks. But yeah, they tend to burn out after a while because if you're using it for a primary source of heat, obviously it's going to go through a higher use factor. But yeah, you're right. They are fairly expensive and ludicrously heavy. So unlike the Princess Auto one, where you can actually haul it around, because I have one at the house as well, but you can literally lift that one no problem. But that one that we put in there had to be 400 pounds.
Oh yeah, they're not light, and it's definitely something to plan for. I
made the mistake of trying to install it myself. That was a bit of a chore.
They're like radiators for a boiler system. Like they're solidly built.
Yeah,
and they're heavy. Otherwise, they burn through. So
yeah, there is that.
Yeah,
so I did have a use made up for that Princess Auto wood stove that I was thinking of actually making up like an outdoor steam sauna. So you get like basically a cedar barrel kind of. You can put a window on one side, and you can put one of those stoves in there, and kind of get a fireproof hole in the roof, and make it, put a bunch of rocks around it, make it a Finland style steam sauna. But
there you go,
long term project.
Yeah, I mean,
but that would be off grid heating and or cleaning too,
and comfort.
Yeah.
Throw in a bottle of wine, you got baby making time there.
Not again. We're just getting out of that zone, man. Yeah, so let's see here. If you're going to be off grid and you want to heat your house, going away from the wood stove, we've got to talk about electric heaters.
Nope.
Yeah. Thank you.
Electric heat and off grid do not mix.
Yeah.
There's nothing efficient about electric heating except that it is convenient and doesn't require ductwork.
Or being off grid.
But it's not an off grid solution. I'll say it right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, so you think about like your average hair dryer. It's like 1,500 watts for just a hair dryer, and electric heaters are usually that or higher. And you think about what the average solar system can produce and store in a battery. It's just the math doesn't add up, right?
So my current shop is like 16 by 24 feet. I have an 1,800 watt portable heater in there. I can't raise the temperature more than 5 degrees Celsius in 2 hours. I call, and it is crazy expensive to run. I can't run the heater and tools at the same time. I'll call shenanigans and say electric heat is not an off-grid option. I don't think you could generate enough solar power to make it useful.
Well, it's actually kind of funny because I had the Island mentor over and I was talking to him about solar and stuff. And I mentioned to him about just basically taking a solar panel, running it into like a 12-volt kind of little buddy heater or some sort of like heat coil or something. He just looks at me and just kind of smiles and shakes his head. And just like, no.
No.
I was like, well, come on, man. It would offset, like maybe offset my heat bill a bit. And he's like, no. So
Now, what does work is black pipe and heating water.
yeah.
So if you run black coils of black tubing along your roof under glass, that will actually heat your water, and it might not heat it all the way up at where you would want it to be, but it'll preheat your water enough that your water heater doesn't have to work as hard.
Or you don't have to boil it as long or anything.
Or you don't have to boil it as long, or it doesn't take as long to boil or whatever. But that is a use for solar heat, or a source of solar heat, but it's not let's just take electric heat right off the table there.
Yeah. Well, that's actually funny because I was told that's the one efficient means of solar energy usage is hot water heating, and like you mentioned, like whether it be for your pool or whatever, that's actually the way to go. So
yep.
So moving along, kerosene heaters. You guys had any experience with those?
I've seen them. I've never used one. I've only used propane. If you light them outside, get them going. Apparently, they don't smell bad. But as you put in the notes, Ian, you still need a window open because anything that burns fuel creates carbon monoxide.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that a little further down.
Yeah, for sure. Passive solar, so not to be confused with the solar panels. There's a few homes out there in southern Alberta and a few other places. They basically have built a house into a hillside, and they have all the north-facing part of the house either underground or sealed off or whatever. And on the south side, they have a bunch of wide-open windows. They're what they call low E glass, or it's basically a low energy loss glass. And what they do is they allow the solar radiation in and trap the heat greenhouse style, and then try and have something like this rock or a dense material into as a thermal mass, and traps the heat and then slowly radiates the heat over the course of the day. So that basically, without really needing any sort of equipment other than the sun, you can heat your house. Well,
interesting.
Great.
Yeah, interesting.
If you're in Nevada or southern Alberta or places that get 300 plus days a year of sun, the rest of us not so much.
Yeah, fair enough. It's an interesting concept nonetheless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I'm getting all my windows replaced, and the sales rep that came out to measure them was touting this triple pane low E glass. So the low energy glass. Basically, the way insulation works is it traps air between two things, and then that air helps reduce the temperature differential between the inside and the outside. All insulation is like that. So this stuff that these windows that he's telling me are triple pane with argon. So argon's an inert gas that goes in between the panes, which reduces the thermal transmission because it's triple pane and it absorbs that heat. And he says, "Oh yeah, it's going to keep your house nice and warm in the winter. You're not going to lose the heat." The flip side is that if you're not losing heat through the glass in the summer, you're also not losing heat through the glass, or not losing heat through the glass in the winter. You're also not losing it through the glass in the summer. So it will make your house warmer no matter what. Now, if you have air conditioning, it will help keep your house cooler and it won't have to work as hard. But
so what they did is actually Cody Lundeen, this off-grid guy, he has a couple great books out there. But anyways, he had a house with this idea going, and he actually designed his overhang on his roof precisely so that basically once the sun got above a certain level, like during the summer, it would actually block off the sun from hitting the glass, and then therefore it didn't actually heat up his house. But as the sun goes further lower in the wintertime, then it actually goes past that roof and shines into his windows.
That's next level nerd.
Oh, he nerded right out on that one. Yeah, he was pretty good about it, but he did a whole YouTube documentary about it. I was like, man, you were he's had a lot of time on his hands to worry about this stuff.
That's
that's a few hours of
math.
Yeah,
that's wow. Good for him. I wish I had that level of give a crap for any of this. That's great.
Well, yeah, and then so he even had the point where mentioned the wind protection. So his entire northern side of his house was just blocked off, so that when the wind blew, the wind basically blew right over his roof, but didn't even touch his house because that was the one thing that did cool off his house. Because he's in northern Nevada, not to be confused with the Las Vegas style southern Nevada.
Right.
Yeah.
Northern Nevada, it gets cold.
It does. Just actually, northern Arizona actually has the world's best elk hunting because it gets so cold there. Figure that one. Yeah. Anyway, so next one, rocket stoves. This is a kind of a permaculture, kind of hippy dippy, kind of like experimental means of heating your house, but proven technology. Very fuel efficient. It burns like about maybe a quarter of what a regular wood stove would burn. And the exhaust that comes out of your house is Gray Man approved because it has no visible smoke. It just has like hot water vapor coming out. However, basically no insurance company will ever cover your house if you have one in your house. So that's why nobody really adopts these things. Because basically what it boils down to is you can make your own rocket stove if you've ever seen the YouTube videos about making a rocket stove. But basically what they do is they have the rocket stove exhaust kind of like snake its way through like a big massive rock, either couch or some sort of rock mass in the house, and heats up that mass so that even though the fire burns out after a couple hours, that rock continues to radiate the heat. And yeah, it's extremely fuel efficient, but a huge fire hazard. If not done properly, I guess.
Sounds like a good time to me.
Yeah. So there's tons of YouTube videos available about this, but if you take a look at the rocket stove, it is something to be said for the house heating. If you're willing to go off grid and really take that on full time, that is something definitely worth investigating. And there's a lot of people that have actually like mud parties where they actually like make a thermal mass of like fireproof kind of mud and clay rocket stove exhaust ducting. And so after they put the rocket stove in, they've got this massive thing they've either turned into a couch or a table or whatever, where the exhaust heats up all that. And so they're sitting on a nice warm chair all night. And then, it keeps the house warm overnight after you've fallen asleep and the fire went out.
It's a pretty cool concept. I remember when I was in Cubs and Scouts, when we winter camped, we would take we would put rocks in the fire, get them nice and warm, and then put them in our sleeping bags just before bedtime so that our sleeping bags were warm. So similar concept, I guess. But yeah, it's I can see why that would be uninsurable. There's a lot that could go wrong there.
Well, yeah, it's not exactly like mainstream, right? So
no.
Well, and how do you inspect it every year for cracks and exhaust and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, so it's definitely something. So this next one's a little more mainstream. This is a trade, like a Red Seal trade. You can actually get something you put in your house for about the meager price of about $40,000. You can get that's it, man. A masonry stove put in your house. So a masonry stove is actually like a highly convoluted version of a rocket stove. However, it's a little more mainstream, and there's like a lot of science involved. There is actually a YouTube channel where the guy actually demonstrates it a couple times called Survival Russia, and it was actually very old technology. And what they would do is they'd have like this basic stove in the middle of the house. Every room would have a wall section facing the stove. And so basically, as they start the fire on the bottom, it would heat every room that was attached to the stove, as well as there was like a couple hot plates where they could cook food on it and everything else. So they cooked food, they kept the house warm. And again, because the entire thing was like masonry brick and with proper ducting and proper clean outs, so you could actually clean the ash out and stuff. It would be highly fuel efficient, maybe like a handful of wood a day, and good to minus 50 degrees Celsius outside.
Huh.
But
right.
I don't know if it's endorsed by the crazy Russians. I'm not sure that I'm interested.
But there's two guys in all of BC that are certified to do masonry stoves, and I think it's a big thing in Europe and Germany, especially in Russia and stuff. But over here, yeah, you're gonna pay through the nose for it. But it is a solid piece of proven technology. But oh my god, it's expensive.
So can we get them to sell that on Amazon so we can use an affiliate link for it?
That would be nice.
Yeah, no kidding. That's kind of crazy. I mean, again, good for them, but I don't think you'd ever be able to offset the cost. I mean, how many wood stoves can you buy for that? Yeah. For that price, and design your. If you put the wood stove in the middle of the house,
Oh yeah.
I think it's a great concept. I don't know. I have a lot more questions than answers on that.
Well, the problem is I think as long as natural gas remains cheap and or available, nobody's even looking at it, right? I mean, these masonry
No.
stoves predate the wide availability of natural gas piping to your house. I mean, up until like the late 60s in Russia, nobody had natural gas lines running to their house, right? So they had these stoves set up, and the house didn't move for hundreds of years either. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, once Gazprom got going over there, and we had our natural gas in Alberta, yeah, probably nobody makes them anymore, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
We're used to convenience.
We are.
It's a whole lot easier to just turn up the dial on the wall.
Yeah, it is. Two-edge geothermal.
I put a quick note about geothermal in there. I couldn't find a source that told me what the draw on the pump was, but essentially what geothermal does, it works kind of like your lungs, where it draws cooler air from your house down into the ground, where the under about 4 feet down, or under 4 feet, the ground temperature stays about the same all year round. So it's a little bit cooler in the summer, a little bit warmer in the winter. Exchanges that air. So it allows that air to heat up or cool down, and then pumps it back up into your house. There is a pump that does require power, so you would have to have a power supply sufficient for it, but it doesn't require ducting. It is quite efficient. It's not used a lot in the residential world. It's used a lot more in commercial and industrial, but especially if you've got in-floor heating, combine that with the coils on your roof, it can be a benefit, or to at least offset the amount of use your other heating sources get.
Well, there's a couple actually. Yeah, it depends on where you are too. Like over in Iceland, it gets so hot down there that they actually can like get steam back when they pump water down, so they actually create power from geothermal. But up in the high Arctic where I used to live, it was 15 feet down. You had to get to go below the permafrost, because 4 feet down it was always frozen year round. But once you got down to that level that you're talking about, it's basically the mean temperature of whatever your local territory you're in is what they're looking for. So if your average temperature over the course of the entire year is like 4 degrees or 8 degrees Celsius, it's going to provide some preheating for your actual hot air, or it's going to provide some pre-cooling for your air-conditioned air, and just offsets the power requirements for either or, right?
Yep. So it's a thing to consider if you're building. That's a good time to consider it. But it does require power, and it won't be the be all end all. It will be it'll be a boost to your other system. So it might mean that if you've got a wood stove, then you're only burning a quart a year instead of 3 quarts. Yeah. So that might be worth it for you. And
the power it requires is a hell of a lot less than trying to like run an electric heater.
Yes, absolutely. No matter what, everything is better than an electric heater. Yeah. When we're talking about off-grid power, we're talking about alternate means of heat.
Yeah. Take anything away from this episode, electric heater. No.
Now, the one major advantage that electric heat has over all of the other things that we discussed is that it doesn't produce carbon monoxide.
Or noise, generally,
or noise. Yeah, well, it depends on if there's a fan, then it might create there might be some noise, but yeah, carbon monoxide is produced by all fuel burning appliances. So whether you're burning wood, whether you're burning kerosene or propane or gasoline or anything, any carbon-based material that gets burned releases carbon monoxide, CO. You may have heard this referred to as the silent killer. It is odorless, colorless, tasteless, much like Eric, and completely deadly.
Wow!
Hey-o.
Wow!
That's for the 83 dad jokes, just for the record. So carbon monoxide. It's all joking aside. It's a big problem. Here in Southern Ontario, a few years ago, there was an OPP officer. Can't remember her name off the top of my head. She was out of the Woodstock detachment. She and her family were found dead. I want to say it was Christmas morning or Boxing Day, and it was a result of a fireplace chimney that hadn't been cleaned. It blocked up. The carbon monoxide built up in the house, and they didn't have a detector, and it killed them pretty quickly. So carbon monoxide, the way that carbon monoxide hurts, it bonds to the hemoglobin in your blood the same way that oxygen does, except that it happens to bond significantly, like much more efficiently. I think it's something like 280 times more efficiently than oxygen does. So a little bit of carbon monoxide will go a long way. And once that is bound to the hemoglobin in your blood, oxygen can't bind, and it essentially asphyxiates you from the inside out. Number one, have CO detectors everywhere in your house. If you have fuel burning appliances, in Ontario anyways, it's law, you have to have that. Aside from it being law, it's a really good idea for this exact reason. Causes of carbon monoxide anywhere can be leaks for leaks within your system. So if you have a wood stove and there's that seal around the door, and that door doesn't have a that there's a gap in that seal somewhere, that can release carbon monoxide. Every time you open the door, you're introducing a little bit more carbon monoxide into the house. If you're just running your conventional furnace and there's something backed up, it can release carbon monoxide. So it's a really good idea to have detectors everywhere in your house. One on each floor is the bare minimum. Ian and I were talking off air about whether you put them up high or down low, or where you put them. Carbon monoxide is ever so slightly lighter than air, but it mixes really well with air. So if you have fans going anywhere, or if you're moving around your house, you'll find that it's going to be pretty well everywhere. You're not going to find it down low or up high. If you are coming home and there haven't been fans on for a number of hours, you might find it higher up, closer to head level than foot level. So it's a big deal. Signs and symptoms, we'll cover that real quick, just in case you happen to be in a hunt camp and you don't have a carbon monoxide detector. By the way, they're about $6 from any hardware store. Well worth the investment. Keep a couple of batteries on hand. Test them once a month. Bright red skin, trouble catching your breath, dizzy and disoriented are the early signs, followed quickly by altered mental status, loss of consciousness, and once you're going to sleep, you're not getting back up. So that's my little rant on carbon monoxide. Everything that we've talked about, with the exception of the non-existent electrical heat, produces carbon monoxide, and it is an exceptionally responsible thing for you to do, to have CO detectors around.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just like smoke detectors, whatever, you can just get on that schedule, spring and fall, time zone change, or when you set your clocks back, you can just change the batteries, and yeah, that's good.
Test it once a month. If you happen to be in Ontario and you happen to be working in the construction industry, the Ministry of Labor gets really, really cranky about that. Kind of January and February every year, they go in a blitz, and every construction site that's burning propane for heat, which is every construction site, if you don't have an adequate number of CO detectors, they start writing tickets.
Like I said, they're relatively cheap, so
yep.
Go out and get a couple if you don't have them, and
literally $12.
Yeah.
And if you ask your local fire department really nicely, they'll probably give you one.
Yep.
I would avoid the combination, like CO and smoke detectors. They just have a high rate of failure.
Good to know.
Get them as independent units.
Cool.
There you go. There's a little safety talk.
There you go.
Very important.
That's my rant.
All right. Do we have any other items to cover off on the list?
I think we've given lots of options. Yeah.
But if anybody has any questions on off-grid heating, just let us know. And maybe there's something we want to talk about that we forgot or whatever. Just drop us a note. And we'll cover it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll work it into a next future episode for sure.
Just as a planning note, when you are planning to heat your house, you make the most. You make the most use of your heat by heating the smallest area possible. So if you can tarp off an area if you need to make a smaller area to be heated, that will improve your efficiency and reduce the amount of fuel that you need.
Yep,
but it also increases the carbon monoxide concentration.
Yep.
Anyways,
all dependent on your situation, what you're trying to set up, whether you're trying to set up just an emergency little heating area, if you're looking for something in a power outage type of situation in the winter for your normal home, or if you're looking to build a little off-grid cabin or something, it's all a matter of kind of planning out your situation accordingly. And I think we've got a nice long list of options here, which up to but not including electric.
Not including electric.
I think we hit that point home.
I think that brings us to our podcast challenge.
I think it does.
And so the challenge for this week is try to find one way to heat a room independently without electricity.
So no electric heater.
No electric heaters. Every other option is available. No electric heaters. My house, we have a boiler that just like the rads go, and it's nice and warm upstairs, and the floors are always cold. But man, those rads are efficient. It'll keep the house warm. Like the furnace cannot run for a full 24 hours. My house is still nice and warm. So that's one more. Now you need a heat source for that as well. But as long as there's gas, I've got heat. So yeah, try and find one way to heat a room independently, heat each room independently, I guess is probably a good plan. So whatever you need in your plans, add that to your plans. Take pictures, drop us a note, let us know how you did that. feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
Cool.
All right, let's move into upcoming events.
All right, just coming to the end of the season. It was a very short season this year, but try and attend a Mapleseed event if you can. I've been trying to plug that as best I can. The website is mapleseedrifleman.com. There's a video I threw in the show notes that just explains what to bring and what it's all about. Yeah, definitely worth your time for food gathering purposes and/or reasons. Yeah, it's great marksmanship training for sure.
Great.
Cool.
And we'll move into shoutouts. So I've got one for Nancy and everybody over at Patch Panel. They are working on our new patch, and apparently we are on some morning commute playlists now. So
Yay.
Sweet.
yeah, so can't wait to see what they come up with for us. Pretty excited to see what creativity they can work and what kind of patch we're going to get from them. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I'm going to put it on my Cub Scout stash.
That's right. We have to earn it first, right? Oh
You
no,
do, yeah. No.
we did already.
After that burn earlier, you don't get one.
I accept.
I got a shout out to Tracy Wilson and Rod Giltaka, of course, Colin as well. But for the CCFR, I mean, thanks again for doing the Great Integrity March. Took a lot of effort and a lot of agency to get that happening, and they did it. So it's fantastic. Also, a quick shout out to Vortex Optics, because once again, lifetime unconditional transferable warranty. Gotta love it. Yeah, so customer for life. Anyways, good for them.
You've had a lot of luck with them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to take one quick second, if I can, to go back to Tracy and Rod there. If you are a prepper, if you are somebody who owns guns and you are not a member of the CCFR, you are doing yourself and the rest of the country a disservice. It does not cost a whole lot of money, and it is worth it to preserve these rights that we hold so dear.
Well, and to that point, actually, 5,000 people is fantastic, but there are 2.2 million licensed gun owners, not to mention about 3 real gun owners, the guys, the farmers that have the 22 in the back closet that don't tell anybody about it. I mean, really, 5,000 out of 2.2 million? Yeah, could have been better. Maybe.
It could have been better. It happened to be on a weekend where A, there was short notice, B, there were a lot of other things going on, C, it's in Ottawa when a lot of people are spread out really far across the country.
Yeah, but and by the same token, though, too, is like they don't have 2.2 million members in the CCFR either. Like, I mean,
That's true.
I'd like to see like 1 million members. That'd be great.
Yep.
I think that would be an excellent number.
Yeah.
So the guys at CCFR, right, Tracy and Rod and Colin and all of the field officers, they're the people who are actually putting boots on the ground and lobbying our government to make logical decisions about things that don't really hurt people, but put yummy meat on our tables. So join them, support them, help them out. That's my second rant for the night. I think I'm cut off.
All right.
All right, we'll move into some email and iTunes reviews then. So we've got one email came in from Greg, and it just says, guys, a couple ideas for shows. I've tried to listen to the entire catalog, but it's possible.
So sorry to hear that.
So but disregard if you've done a couple of those already. So he's listed off 4 possible episodes for us. So we've got those now in our list of things. So we're going to start working away at that. So appreciate you sending in that. And he finishes it off with saying, great job. I really enjoy the show. Thanks, Greg. So appreciate you sending in some topic ideas. And a few others have sent in some ideas over the last couple of weeks since we've been asking. So yeah, we're going to be here another year at least. Appreciate the topics.
Well, we paid the bill for the website and the web hosting, so we don't have a choice, right?
It would have been really boring to just see me every week just sitting here going, yeah, I got nothing to talk about.
Fair enough.
We just rotate every week when someone else will come on and just say the same thing. So we've got stuff to talk about now.
We got stuff to talk about.
Yeah. But if you have,
by the way, if you do want to help support the podcast, there is a link in the Amazon to Amazon through prepperpodcast.ca/support. Every time you buy stuff from Amazon, that helps us out, and that's more likely to keep us on the air.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything extra to purchase through the links, but they give us a small little commission. So
there we go.
And there we go. So with that, I'll bring episode number 84 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please take a second, help us out, and submit a review. It does help other people find us. And we're up to 111. So
more than 111 people.
111 either star reviews or written reviews.
Oh, fantastic!
But one of those was me, so I mean,
I think one of those was me too. Pretty sure my daughter left one too.
We had to get somehow.
We do record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. It gives you an alert when we're going live. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Instagram at ppswo or Alan with 1L at prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, you can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. You can also find my Canadian Patriot podcast on iTunes and YouTube. We record on 9 p.m. Eastern on Mondays. There you can find us discussing why government waste in society in general makes me want to rapidly go off-grid.
Every week.
Yeah.
All right. So please check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com. You can get me there on the live chat while you're, of course, buying some prepper gear. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us this evening. And until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.